All right, we are live. Sunny days in Detroit, coming to you live on a Tuesday afternoon. It feels like a morning because I'm working nights. But the Lions win. They win on Monday Night Football in Detroit, 24-9 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who most people in the media, and rightfully so, had as the number one team in football. Certainly the number one team in the NFC. The Buccaneers have won all their wins. I think they were 5-1 going into this game. Let's just double check that. Yeah, they were 5-1 going into this game. Pretty much all their wins were on a very small margin. And minus one they had, I guess it was the previous week against the 49ers, where they won 30-19 in Tampa. Big win. Really big win for the Lions. Both teams, I viewed this game as kind of a neutral game, not in terms of where they were playing. Obviously, they were Detroit, so Detroit is at an advantage. But I didn't really like the spread going into this game. The spread opened up as Lions minus 4.5, went up throughout the week at minus 5.5. And then once the news came out that Mike Evans was going to play and Igbokwe was going to play, ironically, the spread went toward Detroit again. And the game opened at minus 6.5, which I thought was kind of ludicrous, considering the Lions are going into this game without both their starting corners, without both their starting safeties. So I thought even if the Buccaneers were playing without those starting receivers, it was kind of neutral, right? Because the Lions are going out there and they're throwing out, practice squad corners and safeties, guys that were literally on a couch watching football 2-3 weeks ago. So very impressive. There's a lot of things we could start with. I think the one interesting thing I do want to start with is this. Bucky Brooks over at Fox puts out his power rankings. So going into last week's game against the Chiefs, he had the Chiefs out of the top 10. He had the Lions at number 1. Or I guess it was after the game against the Chiefs. Or no, it must have been before the game against the Chiefs. And then going into yesterday's game against the Tampa Bay Bucks, he has Tampa Bay at number 1. Other notable teams: Philly at number 3, Green Bay at number 4. You have the Bears at number 10, San Francisco at 9, LA Rams at 6. Which I guess I don't have a problem where you have the Rams, Green Bay, and Philly. I think that's all fine. To keep Detroit out of the top 10, I thought was a little crazy. So I am very interested to see his and Tom Brady's power rankings after this game against the Bucks. And quite honestly, I don't really want to hear about injuries. Lions are playing with injuries, just like Tampa Bay is. But really impressive game from the defense. I thought the offense left a lot of points out there. Certainly Jake Bates left some points out there, missing, I believe it was just one field goal. We'll double check that, but I want to say, yeah, he had missed one field goal. But we'll start with the obvious things here. As I said, the defense came in here hobbling, just as their wide receiver group did. And they limited them to 9 points. They limited them to a touchdown, missed extra point, and a field goal. Baker, rightfully so, is an MVP candidate. This is a guy that is doing a lot with at times very little in Tampa Bay offensively. They've had a lot of injury issues. They've had some turnover issues from their position groups, Bucky Irving, and now last night I think they had a tight end a fumble. So rightfully so, this was a guy that was highly touted going into this game. And the Lions dialed up the pressure. I believe they were also missing a right guard, a right tackle. The Lions dialed up the pressure from that front seven. Aleem McNeil played like his head was on fire. So did Aiden Hutchinson. Jack Campbell looked phenomenal back there. I mean, everyone collectively on this defense had a say in yesterday's win. And that's what's impressive because as good as this defense is, the Lions are a team that's led by the offense. When you've got guys like Jahmyr Gibbs and Jared Goff and St. Brown and, Sam Laporta, all these big names, and then in front of them, Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker are blocking. Like, this is a team that is going to average, 30, 32 points a game. And if the offense doesn't go, the team's not going to go. But last night, the offense kind of left a little to be desired. Now, Tampa Bay's got a hell of a defense. Todd Bowles knows what he's doing defensively. But the defense was the one that kept them in this game. The defense was the one in the first half that kept getting those stops. In the second half, too. Other than that field goal they had in the end of the second and then opening drive of the third, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers scored that touchdown. They did nothing offensively. And the Lions were able to force 2 turnovers. That was huge. Now, they caused 2 turnovers offensively, and we'll get into that. But for the defense to come out and play the way that they played and look the way that they looked and dialing up that pressure and just I almost called him Sam Bradford. Baker Mayfield was under pressure all night. The guy couldn't get comfortable. He couldn't get in sync with his receivers. People were kind of killing him for some of those throws, but there were hands in his face the entire game. He was running for his life for a good portion of this game. I mean, the Lions did everything they could to slow him down. It worked. At times, they were able to bring pressure with just 4 guys, which is a really, really good thing to see. And I don't think that I could be happier with what I saw, at all defensively. I mean, you forced a bunch of 3 and outs. You didn't really allow them to get the field position on your side of the field. The officiating, the Lions caught some breaks, but Tampa Bay also caught a bunch of breaks. So I thought the officiating was pretty neutral there. The officiating was bad. I mean, there were a lot of calls that were very clearly missed on both sides. There were a lot of ticky-tack calls that were called on both teams that I didn't agree with the officiating at all yesterday. I thought both teams were they were dealing with a mess from the Zebras. So, but you forced Baker to throw a pick. That was big. And then in terms of fumbling, Sterling Shepard was the other guy that fumbled. And the pick was almost kind of, some people want to call that ticky-tack. I thought that was just phenomenal defense by whoever that was in the Lions secondary. I think it was Mollett. That is a good question. Who got that interception yesterday? Yeah, Mollett was the one that got the interception, and then Amik Robertson was the one that got the fumble. The dog's going crazy here because the neighbors are getting into their car, and he thinks that's someone. But offensively, Jared Goff did not have his best game. Fumbled the ball and threw a pick. We'll start with fumble. I didn't think that the fumble was really on him. He's if you could say anything about his play yesterday, I think he held on to the ball probably a little too long. He held on to the ball a little too long. He was definitely looking downfield for Jameson Williams. That was something he was looking for. And it just wasn't happening. J-Mo really wasn't getting the separation, and they weren't going to allow Jamison Williams to beat them yesterday. They were playing, the safeties must have been 20, 25 yards off the ball at times. And I can understand that. And pretty much because the safeties were playing so deep there, that allowed for Jahmyr Gibbs to go 17 rushes on 136 yards, 2 touchdowns. He averaged, what did he average? He averaged 8 yards a carry. Obviously, that's going to be skewed a little by a 78-yard run, but that was incredible to see. And, if you've been a Lions fan for a little while now, it was kind of reminiscent of the Jahvid Best 88-yard run on Monday Night Football against the Bears, where he breaks out of that second level and just nobody touches him. Nobody could see him. So that was awesome to see. That was much needed. At that time, the game is 7-0. It's kind of going back and forth. The Lions are in control, but they're really not. And Jahmyr Gibbs just puts him over the edge there. And then he does it again later in the game. Montgomery didn't have his best game, 13 carries, 21 yards. But nonetheless, the rushing attack was how they were able to win this game. And like I said, it was because Tampa Bay was just not letting they weren't letting Jared Goff get comfortable. They were on their side of the ball. They were dialing up the pressure. They were getting aggressive. And that's really what you're supposed to do. If you want to beat the Lions, you have to make Jared Goff uncomfortable. He's not a guy that throws in the run well. He's not a mobile quarterback at all. Although he had that nice little rush there for whatever it was, 6 yards. But that's how you're going to beat the Lions. You have to make Jared Goff uncomfortable and try to get him to make a mistake. And he did make a mistake in the third quarter on that interception, which didn't end up being so costly because the Lions were able to get the ball back. But I don't know, maybe that was when Tampa Bay, everything is a blur. But fact of the matter was they played pass and the Lions are just able to run. And that's what great football teams do. What great football teams do is complementary football, right? When one side of the ball or one aspect of the game is not working, somebody else somewhere else picks you up. Last night, for the most part, it was the offense. I think this offense is better than 24 points on Monday night in their own stadium. But the defense picked them up, right? Offensively, the pass game wasn't great, but Jahmyr Gibbs and this offensive line was able to kind of will their way into a rushing attack and putting points on the board. And that's what you want to see. That's what you want. The kicking, Jay Bates missed a kick that he should have, it was a deep kick. It was over 50. But this is a guy we kind of expect to hit those kicks. And even the one he did get in was shaky, right? It hits off the post and skids in. But that's what great football teams do. When someone's not playing at their best, somebody else comes and picks them up. A bunch of great punts yesterday to give the defense great field position there from Jack Fox. So that was great to see. Overall, great win and a great way to walk into the bye now because you've got Taylor Decker, who's been banged up. You've got Brian Branch, who will be coming off suspension. Kirby Joseph with a banged up knee. I'm sure he'll be back. DJ Reed, who's on IR. He served his 4 games here on the IR. He'll be eligible to come back for the Vikings game. Terrion Arnold, I don't believe was ever placed on IR. So he's hopefully someone we could see coming back from IR. It's a much needed break for this secondary, really this entire team. I thought week 8 was a good time for a bye. It's not too early in the season where you kind of get your break early and now you got a really long stretch ahead. And it's not too late in the season where you're banged up and now you get some losses that you really shouldn't have gotten. So the Lions are getting an opportunity here to come out of this healthy and set themselves up well for a divisional game against the Minnesota Vikings in week 9, where you want to see them obviously get that win. Other notes about yesterday, Kelvin Shepherd once again was phenomenal. doing everything he did with this defense, disguising some of these blitzes and just hats off to this secondary group once again, because this was a group of guys who had no business on an NFL field, who had no business in prime time, in the lights, for everyone to see. And they shined the brightest. They looked fantastic. And, the secondary was really, if there's anyone that saved the game, it's the secondary. I mean, this very easily could have been a track meet that the Lions had to get into. And as you can see, the way that Tampa played them, I don't think the Lions were capable of a track meet yesterday. The deep ball wasn't there. St. Brown got his receptions and his yards, but the pass game was struggling. The pass game was really struggling. I mean, Jared Goff, 241, which is nice on the 29 attempts, but they kind of left some out there, and other, as I said, other aspects of other parts of this team were able to kind of pick them up and keep them going, which is a great thing to see. Coming out of the break, the Lions have Minnesota. They've got Minnesota. They play that game in Detroit, so that's 2 straight home games, right? So they're playing home bye week, and then they're not getting on a plane again until November 9th, which is that following week, to go to Washington to play a Commanders team who may not have their quarterback, right? Jalen Daniels is dealing with some injuries. That's a tough stretch there, because you've got Commanders, you've got Eagles, you've got the Giants, and then you've got the Packers on Thanksgiving. The Giants obviously now looking like a much better team. They did just give up the 33 points in Denver in the fourth quarter, but nonetheless, they look like kind of a reinvented team with Jackson Dart. And obviously the Packers, it's a divisional game. The Packers have definitely shown some holes, but they're still the Packers. And right now they have that leg up on us, right, after beating us week 1. So I think the Lions are licking their chops for Thanksgiving. But it's 1 week at a time. It's one game at a time. And I think if you said to any Lions fan, you're going to be 5-2 going into the bye, I don't think anybody would be upset. I don't think anybody would be complaining, right? Like, knowing what we know, knowing what we knew then and what we know now, you knew you were going to be missing 7 or 8 coaches. You knew you'd be missing both your coordinators. Your Johnny Morton's done this before, but Calvin Shepard's never been a defensive coordinator before. And ironically, he actually, I think, looks like the better coordinator right now. I mean, both these guys look fine. They look real good, but Calvin Shepard looks like he's been doing this for decades. He looks fantastic. And what he's done with a very injured group, I commend him for. And it's only going to get better from this point out, right? Because now he got Aleem McNeil back. He's getting some of these guys in the secondary back. I'm assuming at a minimum we're going to see Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch out there again against the Vikings on November 2nd, which is big. So he's learning on the job, and I think he's doing a fantastic job doing it. So we're 5-2 going into the bye. The Packers have that tiebreaker, and they also have a tie, so they only have 1 loss as opposed to our 2 losses. But I don't think we can complain with where we are now, and I think the Lions kind of control their own destiny here. They control their own destiny. I think if they could come out of November with just 1 loss, I think they're set up really well. At that point, they would be they'd be 9-3 if that were the case. I think if you're 9-3 walking into December, and it's December's not easy either, right? You got the Cowboys, Rams, Steelers, Vikings, and Bears again. So and you end the season with 2 straight road games. So it's really important to be in a good position. By the time December comes out, there's not really a lot of margin for error. And the NFC North is proving to be the best division in football. There's nobody here with a losing record. There's nobody here with a 500 record. Actually, I stand corrected. The Vikings, I believe, have a losing record. No, they're 500. They're 3-3. Vikings are 3-3. Bears are 4-2. we're 5-2, and Packers are 4-1-1. So there's not a lot of margin for error in the NFC North, and there's really not a lot of margin for error in the NFC in general. The NFC is a really tough conference, and I don't see a team with less than 11 wins getting into the playoffs, even with the expanded playoff format and 3 wildcard teams. I think you're going to have 2 teams from the North, and we'll see what kind of shakes out with the rest of the NFC. I think if you put a gun to my head, I think the Lions, Packers, Rams, Seahawks, Eagles are all going to the playoffs. And then from there, it might be a battle for the Commanders or the Cowboys or the Bears or, who knows? I mean, the Vikings are still 500 right now. So the Vikings could be a player for the playoffs. Who knows? But really, really encouraging win yesterday on Monday Night Football. No football for the Lions next week, and then we start out November against Minnesota, 1:00 game. So that'll be great to see. But I think we're all encouraged going into this bye. I think we all feel much better than where we felt, a month and a half ago. Losing week 1 to Green Bay. So thank you all for tuning in. Don't know when we're going to do another Sunny Days in Detroit show, but we will definitely have a Sunny Days Media football show coming at you. I want to say Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, somewhere in that range, depending on my ever-changing work schedule. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Until then, go Lions.